All right. All right, here we go again. I am going to make this quick tonight because the enemy is busy. He don't want me to do this, but I'm going to push through this because I know this topic is going to be great. And I know it's almost 9 o'clock, so I'm not going to be on here too long. Again, I do want to thank you guys for rocking with me, and thank you for those who are still joining me and coming on to watch again. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining KLU Pivot with Latora on True Tuesdays. Again, I'm going to jump into the topic for tonight, which is on relationships. Yes, relationships, knowing the difference between discernment versus delusional. And so this topic is a very big topic. I know there are a lot of times when people look at, listen to different podcasts and different things like that. Everybody is talking about relationships. Everybody's talking about relationships. Everybody have things to say about relationships when it comes to women, men, and just so many different things about marriage, about friendships. But tonight I want to focus just a little bit on what it means to discern and being in a good relationship, in a healthy relationship versus staying in a relationship that is not good for you. That could be very delusional. And there are times where we tend to stay in relationships that's not good for us. And so I want to jump into that very briefly, just to talk about that topic. So, okay, I do once again want to thank you. Come next week, there are going to be some different shifts, some different things that is going to be going on the show here at KLU Pivot. This is phase 2 from Kingdom Language Utterance. So on this show, there will be a moment in time that there will be questions and answers that can be asked while the show is going on. And then there will be times when I will be inviting people to come on. Far as, is there anybody want to share in regards to the topic that will be discussed that night? You will have the opportunity to join in and come on the show. So again, I want to thank you. I'm going to make this very quick. And so here we go. So when it comes to relationships, I know many of us has been broken relationships a lot of time because we tend to believe a lie in a momentarily situation versus realizing versus thinking about the history that we have in a relationship and looking at the different patterns, the different things that we had going on in that relationship for a long time. And so the two things I want to talk about, discernment and delusion in relationships. So when it comes to discernment is, when I look it up, is the ability to judge well in a situation. So again, discernment is a word that we use a lot of time in the church world, in the spiritual world, and the word, which we use the Bible. Okay, a lot of time we use that word discernment because when it comes to discernment is not a word that we use to be suspicious of anybody, if that makes sense. Because I know, and a lot of times when we say that we have discernment, some people be like, "Oh, I discern that my spirit don't take to that person," or that person is not good for me, or this relationship is not good for me. Sometimes we use suspicion as a way to say that is discernment, and it's not true. So when you discern, again, discernment means to judge a matter well, meaning that you're not judging something based on a momentarily situational circumstantial issue, but because you look at the patterns of that person in the relationship from time to time, you have built a testimony in your mind about that person and about the situation. So because you have history with that person, you tend to not focus on the lie in that momentarily situation. When I mean a lie or mean delusion, so delusion, when I look it up, is something that is believed to be true that could not possibly be true. So when we're talking about relationships, we're talking about, say for instance, you've been in this relationship with this person. It could be a friendship, it can be a workship, it can be a marriage, it can be family members. So when you look at the relationship which you have with that person, sometimes we tend to judge a situation to cut somebody off based on a momentarily circumstance. So based on looking at that person and saying that, hey, take look at everything that has transpired from that situation in order to make a judgment call. So okay, let me back up and explain. So say for instance, you have what we call a falling out with a friend, and you have a situation that happened, right? And so when you look at the relationship and where it stands, right? When you look at the foundation, so this is very important in a relationship in order to know if this is a healthy relationship or if this is a relationship that you need to let go. So in regards to that situation, you look at the foundation of what that relationship was built on. Okay, if that makes sense. You look at the patterns in the behavior, you look at the patterns in the interaction, you look at the patterns in the response for that person. And this, again, this can be family, this can be friends, this can be at your job, your work environment. Look at everything instead of that moment, because again, sometimes we can take one situation and make that the verdict for the full relationship. Okay, if that makes sense. Let me say that again. Sometimes we can take we can take and I'm going to do this. I am going to go on my Facebook page to also, so I can give you, maybe I'll do this. So while I'm doing the YouTube, I will go on my Facebook page for you guys, that if you have any comments, you can share your comments. Okay, because this is getting good, y'all. All right. So let's see how this works. Okay, so hi. So I'm going to do this. Because YouTube is not letting me see the comments, I'm going to be here on social media, on my Facebook page, and this is going to allow me that if anybody have any comments, questions, or concerns, I can definitely be able to see it on my Facebook page. Okay. And again, I do want to thank you guys for being and with me on this journey. All right. So I hope this is getting good. All right. I'm getting into it now. So what I was saying is that sometimes we take a momentarily situation and we make the verdict for the whole relationship. Okay. We tend to say, okay, this person did this, that, and the other. And because they did this, that, and the other, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to shut it down and end the relationship and cut them off because of that situation, that one situation. Again, this is not healthy. Okay. And a lot of times we do this because we have not built up a healthy way of responding in a situation. So we tend to be a lot of times emotional and reactive instead of proactive in our decisions. Let me say that again. A lot of times when we make these decisions to cut people off in a relationship, it is because we are reactive, okay, based on that situation versus being proactive in our decisions. Again, When you discern a situation, right, you look at the foundation of what that relationship stands on. If you have years of experience, this is how you build testimony. A testimony is something that you experience and you build over time. And so for those who are believers in the Lord and disciples and followers of Jesus Christ, you know, when you say you have a testimony, is because you have history. You have experimental history with the Lord. You can say without a shadow of a doubt, without grandma telling you to be saved, without mom, without dad, without your pastors, without anybody telling you who God is and who Jesus is in your relationship, because you have experience with him in your life by whatever you've been through, you can say for sure that, hey, if anything happens, I can trust his character, that this is for my good. Okay, let me bring it back a little bit. So when I said trust somebody's character in a relationship with somebody, right? When you have a relationship with somebody, you're able to not be, it will be harder for you to become more offended with somebody when you have relationship with them. When you have relationship with them, you can trust their character, right? So just like for those that are believers in Christ, when something goes wrong in your life at that moment and you're going through a situation, right? You tend not to be offended about what's going on, or you don't get worried, or you don't get out of pocket, or you don't get out of control, and you stand on faith and you continue to push through that hard situation, that struggle, because of your history with Jesus Christ. You trust his character, that everything that you've been through, you have evidence to say that at the end of this situation is going to work out for my good. I hope I'm making sense. I hope I'm making sense. Okay. I really hope I'm making sense. Again, the delusion comes in when you tend to begin to believe the lie of that one situation. Now, can one situation be so bad enough to say that, hey, regardless of what we had and we set up, we got to let this go? Because there are sometimes we find ourselves in being in relationships for a very, very long time, and all the signs is there is not healthy for us. All the signs is there that this is not good for our mental health, for our spiritual well-being, for our physical well-being. But because we're wrapped up in this delusion as if, oh, I have 5 years in this relationship, because I have all of these years in this relationship, let me not throw it away. Because this person has done this for me, the least I can do is continue to be in this relationship. And that's another thing. Sometimes we get wrapped up in all of the good mini moments that happen in a relationship that we forget the totality of, this is not a good thing to be in. Okay, let me backtrack. Let me break it down. Okay. So it's just like being in an abusive relationship, right? Even if it's not physical, there are different forms of abuse in a relationship. There's mental, there is verbal, there is emotional abuse. That person may not be hitting you, but that person can talk down to you, beat you down with their words, verbally just tear up your self-confidence, tear up the person you are by making you humbling you to make you feel like you're nothing, or you're not worth it, or you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not beautiful enough, you're not capable enough. Regardless of all these things that you got going on for you, there are some people that can do damage and break you down without even touching you, right? So there is such a thing as verbal, mental, and emotional abuse. All right. So what that means is that there is some situations where you can think that it's all roses and it's all glamour because you feel like you invested, right? Sometimes you have to let go of a bad investment in order to sow better seeds in better ground. Okay. Let me back up. Okay. So what that means is sometimes we can be in a relationship and it's not good for us at all. But because in the abuse situation, right? Going back to the abuse situation, you can see a young lady or even men go through abuse. They may not physically go, men do get physical abuse in a relationship because they don't want to fight back. That is a thing. But there are a lot of men that go through emotional and verbal and mental abuse with from women, because sometimes our mouth can be a little right? Eh, we can do damage. And there's nothing like somebody that is spewing all of these things at you, because then if somebody hits you, oh yes, it's going to impact you. It may make you feel some type of way, but there is nothing like when somebody put all of these words, the Bible said words have power. And so in the there is life and death in the power of the tongue. So somebody can say all of these different things that you, and it will break you down, and it will take you longer to get deliverance or get freedom from that thing, because words, they're like spirits, they attach onto you and they tend to keep you hostage or in bondage of who you really are, right? So what that means is that you find yourself like in an abuse relationship, going back to that. So the person that's in an abusive relationship, they get talked down to, they get beat down, the person doesn't care for them in ways where they would, in ways that they do it for the other person. Like the person doesn't consider them, they don't share, they don't think about you, they're not mindful of you when it comes to their friends, their family, their coworkers, or even the living space environment. They tend not to pay attention to you. They tend to not be a team player in the relationship. So therefore, you tend to go through all of these different changes of feeling alone and feel alone, or feeling like you're in a relationship by yourself. That's kind of a form of abuse, right? And so just because that person, okay, they say all of these things to make you feel bad, but that one moment they get a conscience and then they say, okay, let me bring home some roses. Or they would say, hey, thank you for cooking dinner tonight. And in your mind, all of the little things that is happening, because you're saying, well, they did bring me flowers. Well, they did give me chocolate today. Or, well, they did say my hair was nice today, or something like that. You tend to say, okay, well, it's not all bad. It's not all bad, right? No, that's an delusion. Okay. We not staying in situations that's causing us emotional, mental, physical, or verbal harm. Let it go. Okay. Now, I know some people have to do some growth and people got to go through some things to get themselves together. But again, you can't grow in a relationship with somebody who's not willing to grow themselves. You can't put yourself in a situation if only one person is in the relationship, is the one that's always apologizing or always being the bigger person or always trying to make things right or always trying to work it out. Sooner or later, that person is going to get tired. You're going to become bitter. You're going to be angry, and you're going to feel like, well, why I got to always apologize? Why I got to be the one to always do the right thing? Why I got to be always the one to be the peacemaker? In a relationship, it goes, both people have to work together in order for it to be healthy and for it to work. Okay. And so, once again, when you look at, and I'm going back, when you look at the foundation of where that relationship stands, okay? When you look at the foundation of what that relationship was built on, and it makes it easier that when you do have a disagreement in a relationship, when you do have a problem, it's harder for you to get more offended, because this person did not do this intentionally to harm you. Okay, they could have a bad moment. They could have had a bad day, or something would have happened. You just give them a minute to breathe, and then you come back. And if you're able to communicate and talk about it and have a conversation and grow from that struggle, grow from that hard situation, because all relationships go through things, right? There are some times where we have hard moments where we got to talk about some hard things. You have to tell somebody, hey, I didn't, I'm sorry that you're having a bad day. I hope there's anything I can make you better. However, I do want to have a conversation with you because how you came at me earlier, that I didn't like that. I don't want to take it out of, taking it personal, but I know this is not you. This is out of your character to act this way. So can we have a conversation about that? About the situation? And if you have a good relationship with that person, most likely they would want to work it out and talk to you. Okay. And so I want to say this on a side note, right? When it comes to being offended, I know a lot of times we hear people say that, oh, you should not get offended. You're a child of God. You're a Christian. You're a believer. Believers don't get offended. You got to hurt when you get offended. You got to hurry up and you got to turn the other cheek and don't. First of all, so I look up a couple words, right, of what offended means. So to be offended is to be resentful, to be annoyed, to be hurt, to be upset, to be wounded, to be insulted, to be injured, to be in pain, to be displeased, to be distressed, to be angry, irate, or even aggravated. So everybody that's offended doesn't mean that they are revengeful. Okay, doesn't mean that they are like angry to the point where they're going to do something. So when you're offended, the Bible says be angry but sin not, right? So there are times you will be offended. Sometimes things may happen that you may feel insulted. Some people really go for the gut, right? And you will feel insulted. You will feel distressed. You will be annoyed. You will be irritated. You will be aggravated. So being offended doesn't mean that you are going to be somebody that's going to get revenge on somebody because they did something wrong to you. No, it's okay. You will be offended sooner or later. Everybody in life gets offended. And so let me say this also. Being offended is not a sin. Okay? It's just like temptation, right? Temptation, that's one of our topics that we discuss later on down the line. It's just like temptation. A temptation is always there. That doesn't mean, it's a sin. It only is sin when you fall into it and you actually do what it's tempting you to do. But that's another story for another time. But everybody will get offended. Now, let me say this. This is something that I say all the time, and I've been saying it for years. Okay. If you can be somebody that gets offended, then you can be somebody that brings the offense. What that means. No matter who you are, no matter what position you hold, no matter what title you have, no matter how great you are in the community, no matter how great you are in your family, no matter how great you are in your social groups, just like somebody can offend you, you can also be an offender. Yes, you can offend somebody else. I know it's hard to hear that. I know. Some of us don't want to hear that because we like, oh no, like, no, they offended me. No, you can offend people as well. Okay. You can also be an offender, right? So what that means that you have to be mindful. There are things that we even do. Now, this is a transparent, this show is about being transparent, wise, transparent, meaning that we got to be responsible in our transparency, but at the same time, it's being open to share, to say, hey, this is what it is. Now, I say that to say this. There are times when I may have been offensive to somebody else then I would have to look at myself and do the work and see, what did I do? What behavior did I have? Or what did I say? What did I do to make them offended? And I will have to take a deep dive and look within myself in order to see what has been done. What have caused this relationship to break? Is it because I got too in my feelings? Was I too emotional? Because at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, we have to realize that there are some of us that went through a lot, right? We have to be constant enough, responsible, take accountability for ourselves to look within ourselves and see what are some triggers that we have that will cause us to respond in an offensive way towards somebody else, right? Let me say that again. We sometimes deal with triggers, okay? It's not everybody's fault all the time, okay? It's not always somebody is doing something to us all the time. Does that make sense? It's not always that somebody else did something to you. It could be something you did that brought about the response that person had towards you, right? So what that means that we have to take accountability for the triggers we have, because there are times where we respond in ways that are not good and that are not healthy for the relationship, right? We have to be truthful and honest to look at our triggers, look at what are some things in us that will cause us to respond the way that we respond in a situation or in a relationship, right? And so, again, these are a part of when you're dealing with relationships, right? We have to be able to discern the situation. What is the situation? Is this someone that have this same behavior, the same pattern over and over and over again? Are they known to always have a problem with people? Are they known to always get offended? Are they known to always be mean? Are they always, again, when you look at that person, their character over the years, and you can learn a lot about somebody in a short period of time, right? And I don't mean that learning somebody in a way that's superficial. If you really open up to relationships, you could learn a lot about somebody in 6 months. Will you learn everything there is to know? Because some people are good at pretending. Yes, there are a lot of people that's good as pretending. There are people that pretend for years, and then when you finally get married to them, or you finally get the relationship a full on exclusive, and you jump on it, you're like, hey, where did that came from? Man, you hold out for a whole 2-3 years? Where did this behavior come from? So, yeah, there are some good pretenders, okay? However, if we really look, if we really have our eyes open and we really look at what's going on, all right? When we really look at what's going on and we see that person for who they are, not closing our eyes, not assuming, not being judgmental, not being suspicious, okay? For all the folks out there say something in my spirit about her or him that I don't like, and they don't take to my spirit. No, your spirit is wrong, okay? You need to get your spirit right. All right? So I said all that to say this. So, and we can do a part 2 of this. But because I really want to be able to find a way, which again, I'm going to be doing some new things next week. I will be able to have people share in the comments. I'll be able to bring, I do have a section in my podcast where I would love to bring random people on to share their thoughts on the conversation or to even add to the conversation. So I'm looking at doing a part 2 with this topic that we're talking about tonight, about discernment versus delusions in a relationship. Okay. And so hopefully next week, Tuesday, I will be able to have that ability to do that for you guys so you all can be more involved in the podcast. You know how it is when you just getting started up again and, you got to work things out and, you got to give things trial and error. Okay. But it's okay because we're rocking it. So I am getting ready to close this out. We're almost sitting at the 30-minute mark. And so I want to close this out by saying this that, and we are going to do a part two because in the part two, again, I would love to bring others up on the live show to share their thoughts, comments, and any questions that you may have. So hopefully next week, Tuesday, this will be a little bit better and we'll be able to function a little bit more better. So I may have a different platform that I used to use before. I'm trying something a little bit new, but I see that it's not working. All right. So I'm going to wrap this up and close this up. Now, you know me, guys. I'm not worrying about the whole formalities and everything right now. I'm just stepping out on faith, on God to do this show because I believe it's in my heart to do. And I just want to be a blessing to everybody that will hear, that will listen, that would share the live. So I'm going to get ready to wrap up this topic. So what I want to say is next week I'm coming back. I was a little bit discombobulated today, but I'll be more ready next week. And I believe that I had to share this piece tonight because if I would have gotten frustrated and just stop and say, I'm not going to do it, forget it, it's not working, then we give the enemy room to celebrate and be like, then if it happened next week, it won't. But if it do, then it's like, you're going to give up. No. So that shows that if there's anything that's on your heart, you need to do, push to get it done, push to do it because God get all the glory out of it. Okay. So back to wrapping up our topic. So again, in relationships, okay, I'm gonna end on my summary. Okay, I'm gonna close it out with a brief synopsis. Okay, number one, when you're in a relationship with somebody, right? Before you decide to let that relationship go, sit down and again, there are some things that may happen that will downright be like, I got to cut this. This relationship is not good for me at all. I got to let it go. So by all means, after praying about it, after looking at everything that surround that relationship, go ahead and do a healthy snap. However, relationship goes through changes, things happen, people go through different things. Look at the foundation of the relationship before you end it. It doesn't matter if it's family. It doesn't, and a lot of people say blood is thicker than water and it's nothing like your biological family. There are some people that are closer to you that's a stranger other than your blood biological family. There are some people that went through hell in their biological family, but tend to have a awesome relationship with strangers. That happens sometimes. So family, relationships, friendships, and looking at all relationships, when you look at how it was built, what it was built on, what are the values that's shared in that relationship, that's another thing. When you're in a relationship, you don't have to agree on everything. In every relationship, you don't have to agree on everything because in relationships, we are not there to be yes men and yes women. We are not there to say, yes, that's right, because we're afraid to say, no, that's wrong. We're not there to say, yes, that behavior you act in the store, you are legit, valid, and I got your back. I'm your ride or die, and I'm going to do. No. In a relationship, you should be able to correct and say, hey, friend, I understand you're upset, but let's go about this a different way. I think we need to, that's not a good way for you to respond in a situation. I understand it was mad. And again, depending on the situation, if you have a good relationship with a friend and you're able to share with each other and to talk things through, or to say, and you're able to correct each other, you're able to say, hey, this was right, this was wrong. Again, based on the history that you have with that person and how you guys interact and communicate to one another. Again, you may not agree on everything. You may have moments where you may be upset over something your friend has said or done. And it may not even be some big thing. It may be something that's very small. For whatever reason, it got under your skin. Or you just had a bad day, or you had a bad season, and your friend said something to you and it just rubbed you the wrong way. And you're like, man, I don't want to talk right now. And so you don't talk for a few days or whatever. But again, if that friend knows you and know how you are, they would say, okay, something ain't right here. Something is wrong. Okay. So again, don't believe the lie about that moment. Don't believe the lie about that circumstantial situation. Okay. Because sometimes we tend to focus on, okay, the lie of this person always had this in them towards you, or the lie that says that this person really don't like you. They just been pretending to be your friend all this time. Or you focus on the lie that nobody likes you, or you always have bad relationship with people, or it's always you the problem. And so that's another conversation we're going to have. We're going to talk about self-identity, self-talk, and all of that. Okay. But again, don't believe the lie. Don't believe the lie. Look at the evidence of your relationship. Look at the history of your relationship. Look at the patterns. Look at the values. What values do you and that person share when it comes to life, when it comes to God, your relationship with Christ, when it comes to work, employment, when it comes to family, when it comes to self-improvement, self-growth, when it comes to all of these different things. Look at the value that you all share and sit down and say, is this worth me breaking this relationship off over a moment of a disagreement or a situation that happened when both you all was in your feelings? Okay, especially for women. This is something that we definitely need to sit down and look at, because as women, we can tend to be in our emotions a lot. Okay. And we tend to make verdicts over a situation that's not really a TKO ended all. Okay. So I'm going to wrap this up. This is part 1. And we will come back next week with a part 2. And so I want you all, everybody that's listening and that's been following me on this journey and watching tonight's show and being so patient and being so right there with me. I want to thank you for watching the podcast tonight. And I promise you, it's only going to get better with time. I promise you, the topics are going to get more juicy. It's going to get more fulfilling. We're going to get so much out of this. And once I'm able to invite other people on to share in the conversation, it will get better. So again, I thank you for rocking with me tonight. And please remember to look at your relationship. Don't give up on that person. Don't give up on that friend. Don't give up on that family member over one situation. Okay. Let's build a community that we're able to share. We're able to talk. We're able to communicate and interact with each other in a healthy way. All right. So we won't have to go through life alone. Okay. Because you want to be friendly. In order to have friends, you got to show yourself to be friendly. And that's another conversation we will have, because a lot of times we want friends. We want to be around people, but we're not friendly. You got to be friendly. Okay. Drama free. Not be starting a whole bunch of chaos and drama. So in order to have friends, you have to show yourself to be friendly. All right. So I want to thank you for joining me on Truth Tuesdays on KLU Pivot with Latora. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. And I love you guys. Please enjoy the rest of your night. I look forward to seeing you again. Please share, subscribe to the channel so you will get notification when I go live or when I post another video. Please share with family and friends to come in and join in the conversation. I look forward to our journey together. This is just a beginning. Again, this is a fresh start, new beginning. We're here moving into a new place in our lives. So again, thank you for watching. Enjoy your night. Have a wonderful night.